Okay, this is English 201, week 14, part 6. I'm going to do this one, then I'm going to go to the gym, and then I'm going to come back and keep filming them for today. Okay, so I'm going to talk about another painting of Magritte's because I'm on a roll. I had some poems to talk about, and I didn't know, but I'm having fun talking about Magritte, and it directly relates to class because these painting issues, it kind of expands out. The things we've been doing about literature are also true of paintings. I think Magritte's fun, and I could talk about Magritte all day, and so I'm just going to keep doing a Magritte day because it's fun. Okay, let's talk about Magritte some more. This next painting I'm going to show you by Magritte's is called Where Euclid Walked. Now, Euclid is the ancient Greek dude who invented geometry. That's going to be important when you see the painting. So, you ready to take a look at this thing? Well, let's take a look at Where Euclid Walked by Magritte. This is it. It is truly one of the strangest paintings I have ever seen. It is extremely confusing, and it makes my head spin every time I look at it. So, for starters, let's start with, boy, I could just stare at that all day and go crazy. But let's start with this. It's very common, it's called plein air painting. It's what my mother does. It's very common for painters to take an easel and to go out. You'll see them in New York City. And they go out in the world, they go out to the park, and they set their easel up, and they paint what they see. So they'll sit down next to some flowers or some trees or a waterfall or a river or whatever, and then they paint the river, they paint the waterfall, they paint the flowers, whatever, fine. That's normal. Now, you could also do this in your room, right? You could go to a window and you could put your easel for your painting right next to the window, and then you could take a look out the window and you could paint what you see. You could just paint fire escapes, and you could paint, you could have your neighbor out there, and you could paint, maybe there's a parking lot and a car, and maybe there's a tree, maybe there's a tree out there that you like, and you could paint that. Okay, cool. So that's normal. It's a normal thing that painters do every day. Magritte has done something strange. Magritte has decided, just like Shakespeare made The Tempest, which is a play that feels like it's about making a play, because Prospero's a lot like Shakespeare, and what Prospero's doing seems very similar to what Shakespeare's doing. Magritte has made a painting of a painting. He has a painting of a window and a painting right next to the window. And it's very clear that what he's got, it's a really simple painting, baseline. The basic idea of it is simple. An artist sets up a painting next to a window and begins painting. Magritte has made a painting of that. He's made a painting of a window with an easel and a painting next to it. And what is the painting of? The painting is a painting of things that are outside of the window. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. My mom does stuff like this all the time. She sets up her painting next to a window, and you can imagine, it's very easy to imagine my mom sets up a painting next to a window and paints what she sees out the window, and then you could make a painting of that, the window and the painting. But Magritte does something complicated, because Magritte's Magritte. He's crazy. I love him. See what he's done here? See that little white line there? That's the edge of the paintings. The little black line, that's the edge of the painting. So this wooden part is the easel, and that's the top part. So the painting is here. But do you see how Magritte has made this painting? But the painting in the painting is put right next to the real world so that that is what is outside the window, but that is the painting, right? Painting. Outside, so that it matches up. It's like he's put them. So normally when people do this, they do a painting of what's outside the window. Fine. But it's like this person has moved the painting right in front of the window so perfectly that it becomes for a split second hard to tell what's the window, what's the real world outside the window, and what's the painting, because they blend together so perfectly. You'll see people do this occasionally with photographs of New York City streets, and they'll go to the real street that it's a photograph of and hold it up so it matches perfectly. So that's already a real interesting thing, because the whole point of the painting is this is supposed to be a painting of the world, but now, and that's two separate things. There's a painting and there's the world, but he's put them together in such a way that, like, that's the real house, but that's the painting of the house, right? That's a building, and that's a painting of that's the real building, and that's the painting of the building. So he's done this in a really complicated way, where the painting is directly where it would be in the real world, so that there's a blurring of, wait, which part is the real world and which part is the painting? They look very similar. It's hard to tell the difference. Interesting. there's more interesting things about this painting. I can talk about this painting all goddamn day. The next thing to notice about the painting, to get real complicated, is that because the painting is put in front of the window. Now, the reason you put a painting next to a window is because you're going to paint what's outside the window. But this painting is in front of the window and is blocking the view, right? Because this is the view of this is the view, and this is the view. But this thing here is the painting. It's actually blocking the view. So here's a question. If I was in the room and I moved the painting, would there be a tower right there? I don't know, because this painting is blocking the view. Now, I assume that on the other side of this painting is a tower, but I don't know for sure if that's right. Why? Because the painting, which is supposed to reflect the real world, is blocking the real world. And so there's a painting of a tower, and the rest of the painting, there's a painting of this tower with a kind of cone-shaped top. But because the painting's blocking the view, I don't know here's my question. If I kicked this painting over, would I see a tower? Or is that just something he invented with his imagination and added to it? It's an interesting question. And so that's already weird, right? Because the whole point of the painting is it's supposed to reflect what's outside the window, but I don't know if it reflects what's outside the window because the painting that's supposed to reflect what's outside the window is blocking the window. Weird. And by the way, notice, it reminds me that, hey, it reminds me I exist. Because he's forcing me to ask these questions. Most art likes to hypnotize you into living in that world, but Magritte likes to remind you that a painting is different from the world. And so when we're asking these questions about, hey, is the painting in the painting blocking the view of the window, it's reminding us that, like, we exist. We're standing, in front of this thing looking at it. And then, of course, I'm sure that you've already noticed the weirdest thing about the painting, which I haven't even talked about yet. I mentioned that Euclid, it's called Where Euclid Walked, and I mentioned that Euclid is kind of the inventor of geometry. The really complicated thing is a weird metaphor? I don't know what to call it. It's very strange. This is like a cone on top of a castle made of bricks that are like cone-shaped. But this is the street. But they're in the exact same shape and size, and they're made of the same material. This is made of stones, and it's in a triangle shape. And this is made of stones, and it's in a triangle shape. Except those are two completely, so they look very, very similar, but they're also two completely different things, because this is a tower that's close to the window, and this is a street that's far away from the window. This comes to a point because there are less and less bricks as you go up. This comes to a point because it's receding into the background. There's actually the same number of bricks there as there. It's just that these bricks are farther away, and so it's in the background. Whereas here, there's less bricks in the top part here than the bottom part, because you're going to need more bricks to do the bottom part than the top part. But it's the same number of bricks there as there. So it really sets up like a very weird thing here, where it's like asking me to compare these two things, which look almost exactly the same, two triangles made out of bricks. But they're they're triangles this is not even a triangle. It just looks like one because it's going off in the background, whereas this is actually a cone. I keep saying triangle, but this is like an actual cone. Like if I can walk up to it and feel that this is a cone, but this is these are actually straight lines. They don't, it looks like they touch back there, but they don't. It looks, if I were to walk all the way there, it would look just like this part. It really makes my head spin. And then there's the most complicated thing of all, to make things extra complicated, which is this is a painting of a painting. And so the whole time I've been having this conversation with you, I've been saying, well, look, this is the real world outside the window, and this is the painting. But all of this is Magritte's painting, right? Magritte painted the curtains, and he painted the window, and then he painted the painting in the window. So I was like, oh, this is the real world, and this is the painting. No, they're both paintings. This is the painting in the painting, and this is the painting that I'm currently looking at. So it raises all these kind of philosophical questions by playing these games with the audience, and it's the same kind of game that you see played at the end of The Tempest, where Prospero, who shouldn't know, Prospero's a character. He can't see the audience, except in his final speech. He can see the audience, and he asks them for help, right? He speaks directly to the audience in that final speech in The Tempest, as you guys all wrote about. So it's a very similar kind of thing. Okay, I'm going to go to the gym and I'll come back and do this class later. You're all delightful. Yeah.